this amendment needs to be passed. And for assurance, for the previous 3 Congresses, I've introduced a constitutional amendment. In this Congress, it's H.J. Res. 37. I assume Mr. Raskin will run down and co-sponsor it immediately because he knows that he could amend the Constitution and defend the principle that is at stake here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, why do you need to amend the Constitution if you can just go ahead and do it by statute here? That's rather curious. I think the gentleman doth protest a little bit too much. I admire the intellectual honesty in putting forth a constitutional amendment because that's precisely what needs to be done, and I'd be very happy to look at that and appreciate his candor in admitting that the Constitution needs to be amended in order to overturn more than 2 centuries of practice and everything the Supreme Court has ever said about the issue. It also should be clear to everybody that only U.S. citizens of majority may vote in federal elections. That's federal law. But everybody, including children who are U.S. citizens, are counted, even though they can't vote in federal elections. I'll reserve, Mr. Speaker.
Jamie Raskin is so much smarter than Republicans in Congress, it's almost not fair.
I'm pretty sure we haven't had a carjacking in my congressional district in several years. If someone thought about carjacking a vehicle in my district, probably wouldn't end well for them.
If you Google carjacking in Kentucky, what will come up is just a few months ago, 2 people were carjacked in different incidents at gunpoint in Louisville, which I think is in the state of Kentucky. The chorus denouncing crime in Washington, D.C., which is suddenly of concern to them. I had not heard them mention that before. Well, it turns out that Bakersfield, California, has one of the highest crime rates in America, recently described as one of the top 10 deadliest cities in America for its size, and its crime rate is higher than that of Washington, D.C.
The latest end around to use immigration as a tool to divide Americans is the Republican attempt to put into law that the census should only include U.S. citizens, despite a 200-year-old practice to include everyone. The whole idea of the census is to obtain information, the truth, the way things really are.
You are fake news.
So you can see why Republicans don't want that. And this isn't just under fatty bananas. Republicans have been doing this for years, although under Trump, the blatant racism is palpable.
Would you also agree that Emma Lazarus's words etched on the Statue of Liberty, "Give me your tired, your poor," are also part of the American ethos?
They certainly are. Give me your tired and your poor who can stand on their own 2 feet and who will not become a public charge.
We do love our symbols in America, although we often miss the point. The Statue of Liberty, for example, standing in New York Harbor, is there to encourage new immigrants to our country and was a gift from France. But Republicans have for decades painted immigrants as criminals and freeloaders. Untrue and unfair, but a consistent message from these old white men. The Pledge of Allegiance, it was a shot at the racist South, which bugged the Republican Party so much that after Brown versus the Board of Education, Under God was added as a protest. Again, Jamie Raskin to the rescue.
First of all, our Pledge of Allegiance, which we say every day, we pledge allegiance to the Republic for which we stand, right? The flag and the Republic for which we stand. When Benjamin Franklin, after our Constitution was ratified, he talked about giving us a republic.
I'm inspired by the remarks of the gentleman from Wisconsin, especially about the word republic, which of course comes from res publica, the public thing. He happened upon a subject that's of a lot of interest to me because I wrote a paper about it when I was in 6th grade, the Pledge of Allegiance. It was written by a radical Baptist minister named Francis Bellamy. I'm not sure if the gentleman's aware of that, on the 400th anniversary of Columbus's arrival in the New World. And Reverend Bellamy, who was an abolitionist in Vermont, was concerned about the continuing salute of the Confederate battle flag in the southern states. And so he wanted to write a flag salute that would be unifying for the Union. And he wrote, "I pledge allegiance to my flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, with liberty and justice for all." And you notice what is not in there. He did not have under God. That was added in 1954 by Congress several weeks after the Supreme Court's decision in Brown versus Board of Education.
And of course, the Republicans missed this point in its entirety. Republicans are trying, again, to use immigration to divide us, despite every lie they used to that end has been disproven time and time again. When Trump won the electoral vote in 2016, he lost a popular vote by 3 million people. So of course he lied.
In addition to winning the Electoral College in a landslide, I won the popular vote if you deduct the millions of people who voted illegally.
No one voted illegally, and it was proven. And just this week, Mike Johnson made these spurious comments about undocumented people voting.
We all know intuitively that a lot of illegals are voting in federal elections, but it's not been something that is easily provable. We don't have that number.
Intuitively? What the hell? Is that how it works now, Mike? I just feel it in my bones. You racist pig. So let me recap. Undocumented people uphold laws in the United States at an almost 4-to-1 ratio over U.S. citizens. In other words, they commit far fewer crimes than, say, people born here and former U.S. presidents. And unlike 5,000 people on January the 6th, of which 1,000 are now in prison, undocumented people don't try and overturn elections, beat cops with American flags, and call for the vice president to be hanged. They do, however, unlike this mope, pay taxes and yet receive no state or federal assistance, except in California, where they helped build a $3 trillion economy, ranking us above France, Great Britain, and India. Reagan, who was from California, fought for a path to amnesty and citizenship. And until the late 1980s, when we militarized the border, these seasonal farm workers used to go home to Mexico.
The U.S. has become a dumping ground.
They're not raping and bringing drugs either. The fentanyl that Miss Piggy loves to claim is being brought into the U.S. from Mexico should check with the border police. While most fentanyl comes from China through ports like Long Beach, the fentanyl that is coming across the border is almost exclusively brought in by Americans. Immigrants from Mexico and Central America are ironically more like Republicans than Republicans. They go to church on an average 50 times a year. That's 60% more than Ted Cruz and 150% more than Tiny Fingers. Their divorce rate is 1/10 of Republicans, and their culture doesn't ship seniors to sterile old age facilities. Central American immigrants have a higher rate of vaccinations than Texans, making their crossing 1,000 times more dangerous for them than us.
Speaker, lastly, the President of the United States, the former president who wants to be the next president, said one of his plans is, he talked to Time Magazine, is to round up the 11 to 15 million illegals and then go through them and find out who belongs here and who doesn't. Would you support that?
Absolutely, and President Trump and I have talked about this at length.
Then there's that. Let me ask you, why would you want to round up 11 million people who are so important to our economy? And do what then? Send them to South Dakota and let Kristi Noem have a go? This is the same party that shot down a Republican Senate bill that addressed the very problems these mopes are bitching about. Again, they don't want solutions because then how would they frighten America? So why do Republicans hate immigrants? Because they assume they're all going to be Democrats. But does anything I just said about immigrants sound like a Democrat? The only reason an immigrant would be a Democrat is because Republicans are pricks. Jamie Raskin's point about the census is dead on. First, no one thinks that non-U.S. citizens should vote any more than we think Fatty Banana should have immunity. There's a federal law, and it makes sense. But yet another irony, a census which gives us an idea how many undocumented people are here and what kind of economic toll, if any, there might be, is an absolutely great reason for including them in the census, right?
It also should be clear to everybody that only U.S. citizens of majority may vote in federal elections. That's federal law.
Unlike Johnson's lies about immigrants voting, the last thing an undocumented person wants to do is commit a federal crime that would in no way benefit them in any way. This is a continuation of the 2020 BS about illegals and dead people voting. It's impossible for Democrats to compete with the volume of lies and scare tactics of the Republican Party, who continually claim that other nations are sending criminals and they're mentally ill to our shores.
Where do you live in the Congo? We live in prison. Oh, that's right, they released them from prison. I don't think they wanted to ask what they did, but they're coming in from Africa.
Jamie Raskin is a national treasure, a man who adroitly commands the truth, versus the Republican Party, for which the truth no longer has any meaning.
Who's with me?
Hi, what's up? On speed or something?
Time to pack it up.
This isn't their Republican Party anymore.
Am I wrong?
Yeah. Tick-tock.
You're in a lot of trouble, Donnie.
Thank you so much for watching. You know, YouTube frequently penalizes my videos for taking on controversial subjects, hurting our ability to earn ad revenue, which we use to hire more hosts and make more videos. We think it's so important to make these videos now and expose the Republican cult. So please join us on Patreon. The link is in the comments. We literally can't make these without you. Thank you so much. For Really American Media,
all of a sudden, this guy is like amped.
I think he's crazy.
I'm Chip Franklin.